This sleep story and all the rest of my sleep stories can be found on my Dan Jones Hypnosis Sleep Stories podcast, which can be found at danjoneshypnosis.com. And 20 of these sleep stories can be found in my book Bedtime Stories for Grownups, and I also have 2 books of stories for children, Relaxing Tales for Children and Sleepy Bedtime Tales. So if you like this story, give it a thumbs up and leave any comments below, and feel free to share this with anyone else who may struggle with sleep or may find this interesting.
So as you take a moment to listen to this adult bedtime story, just allow your eyes to gently close. And as your eyes gently close, you can begin the process of drifting comfortably asleep. And while you begin the process of drifting comfortably asleep, I'll just tell a story in the background. And you can follow along to the story and at times allow your mind to wander. And so you can have a sense of a woman out one night, out in a forest, in a clearing within that forest. And the forest is some distance from anywhere, almost like it's in the middle of nowhere. And she can enjoy the peace, the calm, the quiet that she finds out here in the middle of nowhere. And as night time settles in, so she can set up her telescope, and she starts to look through the telescope, first of all at the moon, and then at different planets. And she finds that gazing through the telescope at a planet almost transports you there. Almost like as you look through the telescope, the only thing that you're aware of is what's through that eyepiece. Almost as if your actual location begins to fade away. Almost like you're hovering in space, watching the moons orbiting Jupiter, seeing the great red spot, being aware of that silence in space. And frequently this woman enjoys going on what she thinks of as midnight picnics. She goes out into the middle of nowhere. She treks deep into woodland, finds a clearing within that woodland, sets up a picnic, sets up her telescope, and settles in for a night of stargazing, looking at planets, looking at the moon, looking at stars and nebulae, and lying down on a picnic blanket, enjoying the calmness of the night. And as she enjoys the calmness of the night, she watches as shooting stars pass by, sure that she can hear a hiss or a fuzz, and yet aware that there's probably no sound there. And she eats some food, drinks some drink, breathes in the cool, calm air of the night, and breathes that cool, calm air out. And listens to the sounds around her. Listens to the change in the sounds as the sun set and the moon rose in the sky. Enjoying this time of peace. And she never knows what a night like this will bring. She just comes out to enjoy the night, enjoy stargazing, enjoy a relaxing picnic, enjoying some time alone. And she often finds herself falling asleep out here. But if she thinks that she's going to start falling asleep, she lights a fire and sets up a small tent so that she can just tuck herself away out of the elements a little bit, while keeping warm and still able to see the sky. And as she relaxes and gazes up at the sky, she watches as a satellite slowly passes overhead, looking almost like a moon, looking almost like an aeroplane flying overhead. Just silently passing over, but unlike an aeroplane, it's just a single dot. And she watches and finds herself focusing on satellites as they pass over. Finds that engaging and drawing her into the moment. Into the moment of being here, with the cooling air, relaxing, aware of the nighttime sounds, gazing at the sky. And as she gazes at the sky, she begins to feel tired and sleepy. And while she feels tired and sleepy, she lights the fire, moves herself gently into the tent, and watches that fire, gazing at the way the light dances, the crackling, the flickering of the flames. And she feels drawn into that as the fire burns down and gradually turns to embers. And she finds it curious how the fire starts off strong and fast and noisy, but gradually it quickly burns down to just glowing and giving off heat, and still crackling, but in a much more relaxed way. And as she watches that fire burn down to embers, so she feels more tired and lays back in the tent as the fire is just a gentle glow outside, and drifts comfortably asleep. And while she drifts and sleeps and dreams, she feels like her eyes open, and like she walks out of the tent to see what looks like a grey alien walking across the clearing towards her. And as she watches that grey alien walking across the clearing towards her, she feels calm and excited, curious about that alien. And she can see in the distance, within the forest, flashing lights, spinning lights, hearing a whirring, aware that within the forest perhaps there's a ship. And the alien introduces itself. And she's surprised that she can understand the alien. And before she says a word, the alien communicates to her that it communicates telepathically. And that because it communicates ideas, those ideas get telepathically interpreted as those ideas would if they were in your own mind. So the alien can think of a cup, and that's an idea. And the cup to the alien will have one name, and a cup to a person has another name. But the person thinks of a cup, and their brain converts that into the language for those ideas. And the alien took some time to explain this, explain how it communicates. And this woman thought about questions she wanted to ask. And without having to ask those questions, the alien replied that they are a messenger, that they are here to convey a message. But they can't say exactly what the message is unless the person is ready to hear it. Because people only see what they expect to see. They only hear what they expect to hear. So the alien explains. If they're not ready to hear the message, then the message won't be heard. So the alien is aware that it has to educate first. And the alien shares that the message it has to convey is about home and hope, and that it left a world after becoming highly civilized, and that civilization destroyed the planet that the alien left. And so the alien and others like it were forced to have to leave the planet because they had destroyed their own planet. They believed that they were smart enough that when the time came, they could turn things around. But when the time came, it turned out it was too late. The only thing they were smart enough to do was leave the planet to survive as a species. And some people stayed on the planet. But they were in small enough numbers that they were able to create shelters in locations that were least likely to be affected by the harm that they'd been doing to the planet. They explained that their progress their technology used vast amounts of resources, and that they'd progressed so far they were using more resources than the planet had available to them, and that they affected the weather of the planet. They affected other life on the planet. And so many of them moved to live in the stars, travelling to other planets. And they explained that space is vast, unimaginably vast. That there would be many generations between locations, that they would pass on the stories and the instructions of where they've been and where to go, and the knowledge of their civilization through generation after generation. And that some would settle on different planets, and some would continue exploring. And that now they had become a galactic race, a galactic race that was so spread out they rarely managed to communicate with each other, because they would send a message and it would take decades of Earth years, often longer, just for the message to arrive with any of their kind. And then if they'd happened to stay still, it would take equally as long for a message to arrive back. And by then, often the person who sent the message was long gone. But there's always one known as the messenger, whose role it is to listen out for messages, to listen out for messages of new life, new civilizations, and messages from their own kind. And on finding a message, it's their role to make contact and to educate the person they've contacted. And the woman was curious. Why her? Why contact a random woman in the middle of nowhere? Why not contact a government? Why not be more public? And the alien explained that in the past their kind had arrived and announced themselves in a very public way, only to be feared or attacked. That often at the point that a species is sending out messages, is starting to move to the stars, that's the same point. They're very divided. It's the same point that some fear the technology, fear the advancement. Others misuse the technology or see what they can gain from the technology for themselves. It's the point that many destroy themselves, and the point that when they encounter others, they have a tendency to fear all this change that's happening too quickly. Because once this technological advance happens, it happens rapidly and continues accelerating. And so the best way to make contact is to find people who seem to have an interest in exploration, in discovery, that seem to have curiosity, and start to get a sense of what these people are like that you're making contact with. And start to learn about them. and then gradually make contact with more and more, until it becomes the natural thing that so many people are saying that they've had this contact, that the natural next step is to openly show yourself. And the alien said what it wanted to say. Was a warning about the damage that humans are doing to their planet, that humans are almost on the verge they were when they left their home world, that humans already have the technology to accidentally destroy themselves, and they have the desire for future technology and progress to consume more energy than the planet can handle. And that they could so easily accidentally cross that tipping point. And they told the woman that what they want her to do is to begin to help to meet up with other like-minded people, to gather everyone together, to start to unite. Not around whether there was aliens or not. Not around saying they'd met an alien, but around saving the planet. Around saving humanity. Around helping humanity to begin to learn to love one another, to show compassion and kindness, to start to build bridges between each other and unite together and work together. And the alien said that they're uniting enough people together that they can then gather up from the bottom up, that rather than trying to go to the top down, rather than going to the people who want power and trying to convince them to change things, when many of them only want to change things for their own personal benefit. Instead, they have this grassroots of people who can change things for the better from the ground up. And they explained that once that change has happened enough, once the people of Earth begin to unite, begin to work together, begin to break down barriers and borders, begin to reach a stage where you could walk right around the world, pretty much unobstructed. where there are no borders, where everyone focuses on working together and collaborating. That once the planet reaches that stage, where all the governments have agreed that the best way forward is to all work together to create change, to create technological progress, to work on problems that they face. That's when the aliens will finally present themselves to leaders, when all the leaders are working together, so they'll all be able to meet in one place, with no leader having a monopoly, where the focus is on peace and collaboration. And the woman could understand why she was one of the chosen ones, with her curiosity, her focus on hope, on the stars, on peace and kindness. Her friendliness, she could understand why. And with that understanding, the alien disappeared. And as the alien disappeared, she could hear the fire just crackling lightly in the background. Notice the slight glowing of the embers as she lay down in the tent. Feeling a sense of wonder, luck, joy, curiosity, and drifting comfortably, relaxed, asleep.